Been a while since you have been in the wild African bush. Heard a lion lately, longing for those million stars in the African night sky. Well, this trip is just for you. Just to ease you into the bush, first night's stay is in a chalet at the Khama Rhino Sanctuary. Next 3 nights camping at Nxai South Camp. Wow, straight into the wilderness. Drive through Maun and stock up on supplies, then into the Moremi for 1 night camping at South Gate. Mind the hyenas. Leisurely drive through the bridges to 3rd Bridge Camp. 3 nights camping here. Hope to see the Cape Wild Dogs. Dry season, so the sightings should be great in the North Gate Camp, where we will camp for 2 nights. Out of the reserve to the Mababe Conservancy, where Dizhana is on the banks of the Khama River, which will be our camp for the next 2 nights. Beware of the ellies. The ladies need some pampering, so tonight we'll be in an ensuite tent at Maun Rest Camp. Next stop is 1 night's camping on the lawns of Cresta Marang Casino in Francistown. From here you can plan your way home or create your own itinerary for the next few days. My daughter has given us challenges to do on our Botswana trip. Keep your eyes peeled for progress. 1. Get a selfie with one of the big 5. 2. Bake Chelsea buns in the bush. 3. Find a kid or group of kids and have a game of football with them and then donate the ball to them. 4. Stop over at a local pub restaurant and have a traditional meal, ce soir, and quench your thirst with a local beer. 5. Start a fire with a flint and connect enough wood locally to keep you going for the night. 6. Get a group selfie with the border police. 7. Ronaldo and Anita have to braai 1 night. No comments or help from the men, and then the men will wash up and clean up. 8. Dad, go through the border wearing one of Ronaldo's girly blingy tops. En route to the border, I came across this lion. Does it serve as a big 5 selfie? Obligatory stop at the Tropic of Capricorn. Always a winner. We stopped over at Sebe Lodge. This is a fantastic place that we've stayed at before, right on the banks of the Limpopo River, bordering South Africa and Botswana. We were appointed 2 rooms, tastefully decorated. In fact, the one room was so large, I'm sure we could have slept both families in it. We were only 4 people at the lodge, and the camp staff served up a traditional African braai vleis with all the trimmings. What a fantastic meal. We had arrived at Stockport border on the South African side. Our first challenge was to get a group selfie with the border police, which this gent humbly obliged to. The next stop was the Pa's Halt border on the Botswana side. I changed into Ronaldo's blingy top, much to the amusement of the border control official. Today's trip takes us to the Khama Rhino Sanctuary. It is a community-based wildlife project established in 1992 to assist in saving the vanishing rhinoceros, restore an area formerly teeming with wildlife to its previous natural state, and provide economic benefits to the local Botswana community through tourism and the sustainable use of natural resources. Covering approximately 8,585 hectares of Kalahari sandveld, the sanctuary provides prime habitat for white and black rhino, as well as over 30 other animal species and more than 230 species of birds. There are 8 chalets to choose from, located in different areas. Bedding and towels, bra facilities, bar fridge and electric kettle will be provided for all the chalets. Basic cooking utensils are no longer provided. Clients can bring their own or use the restaurant to buy meals. Chalet C and D are located at the Makgadikgadi camp and accommodates 4 people each and have 2 rooms and 2 beds in each room. Our cabin should be Chalet C. A crested francolin with its distinct sound of the African bush. An icon of Khama Rhino Sanctuary with its huge forward curved horn. And a youngster rubbing its belly on a scratching post. Two leopard-faced vultures, the masters of scavenging. We did supper in the restaurant, always a winner. Stop for a break somewhere along the road near Rakops. Surveying the Bateti to make sure that we had a safe crossing. We took a shortcut here, which saved us approximately 50 kilometers. Today's destination was Nxai National Park, which covers 2,500 square kilometers and was proclaimed in 1970. It later extended to its present size, including Baines Baobab. Nxai National Park is located on the northern fringe of the Makgadikgadi Basin and includes Nxai, an ancient lake bed that was once part of the ancient Lake Makgadikgadi. Nxai National Park consists of a series of fossil pans, acacia trees on islands that form shady spots for the animals to rest during hot weather. South Camp campsite is located not far from the second entrance gate in a well-shaded area. There are newly built 2 ablutions, 2 standpipes and official water holes with 10 camping sites. We will be on stand NX1. We took it easy around camp. It was nice to relax after an extremely long drive from Khama Rhino Reserve. Anita and Jerry were responsible for dinner that evening, so here she is preparing. What a beautiful place. The next morning I served up croissants, fruit salad, ham and cheese with a brew of coffee. The yellow-billed hornbill, always present in camp. In fact, a little later on we will see that there were 3 different species. A springbok pronking. It's not known definitively why they pronk. They could be excited, agitated, exercising, spreading their individual sense, or showing off their fitness to either predators or rivals within the herd. It's always fun to watch.
But that is elephant done
The one.
The last remaining bits of the elephant carcass, the lower jawbone. Our destination was this baobab in one of the loops in the park, a majestic tree that has been around for ages. One always feels humbled standing beside it. Later in the afternoon, whilst returning from the baobab, we decided to go to the Nxai waterhole itself. There wasn't much water, but it was the only sustainable water in the area. In the distance, we noticed a trail of dust. and we could see that there were a number of bull elephants making their way towards the waterhole. What a spectacular sight to see them from the distance until they eventually got closer to us. Later on in the afternoon, we had a spectacular experience with the elephant walking right up to the Land Rover and falling asleep not less than 2 meters away from the bull bar. It's something that I would cherish for the rest of my life. A once in a lifetime experience. Absolutely fantastic. And here he is, sharing some time with us. What a special picture. Supper this evening was a good Durban curry in the bush. The sun setting over the African plains, always a spectacular sight, brings closure to the day. What a great time to be around. And to round off the hot curry, a nice cold ice cream. Starting the day early, we had a quick breakfast of boiled eggs, assorted cheeses and crackers. Challenge 3 came up sooner than expected. Along the road towards Maun, we came across these 3 youngsters in the middle of nowhere. We stopped, had a chat, and played some ball. They were suitably happy with the soccer ball when we left. An attraction for 4x4 enthusiasts and a constant battle of nerves for the novice. Moremi's poor roads, some of the bumpiest, sandiest, and most waterlogged in Botswana, are unavoidable. but this should never deter anyone from having one of the best wildlife experiences in the world. Moremi Game Reserve sits on the eastern side of the Okavango Delta and was named after Chief Moremi of the Botswana tribe. Moremi was designated as a game reserve and not a national park when it was created. This designation meant local people, the Basarwa or Bushmen that lived there, were allowed to stay in the reserve. The Moremi Game Reserve covers much of the eastern side of the Okavango Delta and combines permanent water with drier areas, which creates some startling and unexpected contrasts. After arriving from Maun, you'll find South Gate Camp under tall mapani trees behind the gatehouse. There are 10 stands with 4 and 6 closest to the access road and 8 to 10 the most secluded. It is a quiet, relaxed site. Our site will be MQ6. Here we see in the middle of the road some spurfowl, I think, having a tiff, chasing each other around and kicking up a lot of dust. The animals and birds are very tame in the camp. Here we see an African tree squirrel eating a fallen flower bud. The beautiful Burchell starling, which is so iridescent as the sun strikes him on different ways. The African grey hornbill, as I mentioned earlier, 3 different species. The southern yellow-billed hornbill, which is also prevalent in a lot of the camps, and the southern red-billed hornbill. Tonight is challenge night, challenge 4. Ronelle and Anita have to braai with no help from the men. Here we see the ladies preparing the fire, the wood, the setting of the fire, the making of the toasted sandwiches, the braaiing of the meat and the sandwiches, and eventually a delicious end product. Well done, girls. Anita was creative with her breakfast display this morning. Surprise packages, yogurt, fresh juice. It looked fantastic. Today's destination, Third Bridge. From Southgate, 3 roads head into the reserve. A straight cut line north to Kwai, a meandering track northwest to Kakanaka, and an alternately rutted sandy jeep track west to the 3 bridges. It takes about 3 hours on the road west from Southgate to Third Bridge, but allow extra time to explore the tracks around Zini Lagoon, especially beautiful in the late afternoon light. From Zini is 20 kilometers to First Bridge, and Second Bridge is 2 kilometers beyond that. The bridges themselves, little more than a loose arrangement of mapani trunks, are rickety, but easy enough to cross unless water levels are exceptionally high. Third Bridge, however, can be problematic. The campsite lies to the southeast of the bridge, so arriving from the south is relatively simple. There are 9 camping stands plus 5 permanent tents. Elephant, hippo, lion and hyena are frequently sighted in camp, especially after dark. We will be on stand MT6. The roads are extremely sandy, and as you can see the way the Land Rover sways from side to side, it's quite a challenging drive. We stopped over at a pool on the side of the road, noticed some hippos. The pool wasn't too full, and judging by the way this fella's looking at us, I'm expecting him to be extremely grumpy. The drive towards the bridges is extremely rewarding. Apart from the challenging sand tracks, the scenery changes from grassland to woodland, and the road meanders through the trees. It's very pretty. We had arrived at the first of the 3 bridges. I jumped out quickly to take an obligatory photo of the road sign that I can put in my lapa. A short 2 kilometers away we arrived at Second Bridge. Ronald went across and took the obligatory video of the Land Rover crossing the bridge. Since a child, I've always yearned to cross this and have my photo taken. Another one checked off the list. After crossing the bridge, I radioed through to Jerry to tell him that I was taking an alternative route. He should continue straight and I would go and around another loop, which should basically bring us both out close to 3rd Bridge Camp. We met up with a game drive vehicle and an uncooperative elephant in the road. The Ellie eventually moved off. We had arrived at 3rd Bridge. Always wanted to stay at this campsite. We always heard that the baboons were problems here. but it soon became very apparent that it wasn't the baboons that were going to bother us. We'll see a little later in the videos. We had a quick ice-cold beer at the shop and then proceeded off to our camp, which was pretty close to the main entrance. In the nearby lagoon, we managed upon an African jacana. This bird has been on my bucket list, so I was quite pleased to see it. Shortly thereafter, we saw an African darter who managed to catch a squeaker fish, which is basically a small catfish. Quite amazing to see how it spikes it with its beak. Standing next to it was a regal yellow-billed stork, always pretty to see. After a delicious supper made by Anita and Jerry, we retired. Unbeknown to us, we had visitors that night. Our hyena came into the camp, did some sniffing around. Very earlier the next morning, before we had got up, there was an elephant not less than 2 meters away from our tent, doing some scratching or eating at a tree. Breakfast was bacon, scrambled egg, toast, filter coffee, and a tad of port. Today we took a drive out to the Mababe boat station. They were far too expensive, so we returned to camp. We got some nice sightings of animals, including a Birchall's kukul, which was quite an interesting find. Standing proud was this impala with his regal set of horns. What a beautiful sight. And next to him in the tree was a little bee-eater with all its colors. Such a pretty bird.
There's one gone down to the toilets, 2 gone to the toilets, 3, 4, 5 gone to the toilets. Put our food in the sink. Such a great huge feast. Like little kimonos. There's a little baby. Little baby.
And so, to escape the elephants, we moved vehicles and went down to the lagoon to have a sundowner with a little G&T. What a better way to start the afternoon. Challenge 5. Start a fire with a flint and collect enough wood locally. So let me just clarify. The wood locally we could not collect because we were in a reserve, but we did plan ahead and we bought from a local vendor on the way out of Maun. Now let me speak about the fire with a flint. Let me tell you, this is not an easy task. Initially, the fire was started with some grass. It immediately caught flame and extinguished itself because it burned so fast. I then struggled quite a bit with the types of wood. I had dried mopani wood, but that was far too hard to start a quick fire, and quickly learned that I need to use small dead branches from fallen trees. I also tried elephant dung. Unfortunately for me, the elephant dung was wet to a certain extent, slightly wet, and it smoked terribly and smelt equally as bad. After a long struggle, I did eventually happen to start the fire, and we were able to cook our food for the evening. What a challenge.
Those little coals that you get there. Slowly, lightly blow those. Hey, thank you.
Little grasses. Burn that flint.
Alright, looks like you set me a big challenge here, no?
You wanna?
Oh, there we go. Get more grass. Anita, it was really on your... Oh, except if Edwin washed it.
I've got it.
Edwin's got it.
Who's got it? I mean, you've got it there.
The glass is empty. The gin glass is empty. Supper was eventually cooked. It was stroganoff and brown rice, with a malva pudding at the end. The girls eventually gave up trying to eat outside and chose to sit inside the Land Rovers for fear of the elephants. This elephant came through camp, walked up to our washing line, deftly wrapped its trunk around the nylon line and pulled it ever so gently. It snapped. This attests to the incredible strength that these animals have, because I can put my money on it that two grown men pulling together on that rope will not just simply break it. The elephant then meandered through the camp to a tree, started playing with the wire for the solar panel, and eventually left. When we arrived, I mentioned that baboons could be a problem at Third Bridge. Well, this was definitely not the case. We were overwhelmed by elephants of all sizes, particularly a lot of youngsters. So with youngsterism, if we can use that word, comes cheekiness. So they were very boisterous. We had to have our wits about us. We had a great breakfast of baked beans, bacon, French toast, eggs, and coffee. But the breakfast was short-lived as we were chased away from the camp and eventually ended up eating the breakfast in the ablution blocks to escape the elephants. Challenge 6. Get a selfie with one of the big five. I did it, Laura, but I needed to change my underpants. Today, Anita, Jerry and myself went on a boat ride into the Okavango. Ronelle didn't want to come because she was scared of the hippos. The trip was hugely beautiful, crystal clear waters, high reeds, a lot of bird life. We even saw some crocodiles. What a fantastic experience. A tiny malachite kingfisher and a coppery-tailed kukul. A baby crocodile also presented himself, and then this majestic black-chested snake eagle. This chin spot Batis was a little difficult to capture on camera. He kept on turning his head away and flittering amongst the reeds. In the reeds as well, we also saw a red lechwe, which was quite at home in this wet environment, and then also a fairly bigger sized Nile crocodile. This is the part that Ronald would not have been happy. These hippo were in this lagoon. They were a fair distance away from us, but I think they deserve a lot of respect. They can move pretty quickly underwater. Here we stopped off on dry land, took a walk around to see if there were any land mammals around, but it was pretty desolate. We proceeded then back to the boat and took our journey back homewards. Our guide took us through a hair-raising trip home, accelerating through the reed channels, apparently boating towards a dead end and then immediately turning again. It was fantastic. What an exhilarating experience. On arriving back at camp, we were greeted by, yes, another elephant. Challenge 7. Bake Chelsea buns in the bush. I pre-packed all of the items as Lara had given us the list before we had left. This is basically a bread recipe, so once needed it had to rise next to in the sun on the fire pit. I then proceeded to roll out the pastry. Put in the ingredients for the inner roll, cut them up into segments, put them into the flat bottom pot with a cake grid to raise them off the floor, and the end product looked pretty damn good. I was quite pleased with myself. Drizzled icing over them, and the end product was as good as any you've expected to find in a shop. Supper again was delicious, but little did we know the horrors that we were to expect that night. Just listen to these guttural noises. We heard lions approaching that evening and found footprints in the camp. We asked the camp attendants as to what they thought the noises were, but there was speculation that it was either hippo or elephant. We never truly found out what the answer was to this noise. Breakfast was French toast, ham, cheese, and, you guessed it, Chelsea nuts. Today we move on to North Gate Moremi Reserve. The vast floodplains of the River Kwai are home to an extensive variety of animals, especially in the winter months when water is scarce. The area is also closely associated with the San Bushmen, who have a growing community nearby. Don't miss the elevated height that looks out over the large hippo-filled pool about 15 kilometers before the gate. From the wooden bridge outside Moremi North Gate, sometimes called Bridge over the River Kwai, is less than 1 kilometer to the Kwai village along a graded gravel road. Firewood, basic supplies and a cold beer are available there at the spaza shops. Camping at North Gate feels a bit wilder than at South Gate. Stands 1 to 3 are the exception. All 3 are near the gatehouse with views of the cell phone mast across the Kwai River. Stands 4 to 7 are spread out under the shady trees in the center, but 8 to 10 are more isolated with expansive views down the river to the east end and a good chance of seeing elephants crossing the water in the late afternoon sunshine. The stand allocated is MK05. Impala and red lechwe were plentiful along this part of the drive. They stood in great numbers along the plains, which was quite a sight to behold. The giraffe that we saw in the reserve were pretty dark in color, fairly different from the giraffe that we see in South Africa. The Maombo woodland offers a different scenery to the grassy plains that we had been passing in the earlier stages of the trip. Quite spectacular to have a look at these trees and all their lush greenery so late in winter. We had been given a heads up to a lioness. Unfortunately, she was injured from the catch the evening before, presumably a broken leg. However, lions are resilient and there's a good chance that she would have recovered. We had arrived at the Dombo Hippo Pools. There was a hide elevated over the pan, which gave a good viewing point to see the numerous hippos. The fish eagles, as always, an icon of the African bushland. A Birchall starling that wasn't too shy to come and pose right next to us. The Nile crocodiles were plentiful. as well as the African Jacana once again, and a pied kingfisher. Along our way, we came across this beautiful kudu bull. What a majestic creature. We had arrived at North Gate Camp. We checked in and proceeded on towards our campsite. It was a nice campsite, but here definitely we had a problem with the monkeys and the baboons. We would have video a little later on to attest to this, but they kept us busy. We took an afternoon walk down to the River Kwai. It wasn't too far away from camp, a few hundred meters. We saw this lone elephant eating the grass and watched a bit of the sunset over the river and the bridge. Fantastic views. Late afternoon sunset. What a fantastic sight. On the right hand side of the tree, you'll see the monkeys in the pathway. Supper tonight was brine, chicken thighs and mash. I set up the camera trap and we were rewarded with a hyena sighting. This hyena came around and spent some time in the camp, sniffing around the brine looking for morsels, which we obviously didn't leave for him. I had obviously heard a noise, so I shone my torch out the top of the roof to see if I could see anything. But they're very sneaky and very wary, so they stay out of the light. Here he does a final round early in the morning before leaving. For breakfast, Jerry did breakfast wraps. I'm still looking for the recipe, Jerry. It was delicious. Notice how hairy a waterbuck is. Two icons of Africa, a Land Rover and an elephant. I drove past these two lionesses, barely a few yards away, window open, arm out, totally unaware of their presence. Jerry frantically calling in the background. Lion, lion. What a wonderful sighting. After the game drive, we crossed back over the River Kwai, ready to take on our next challenge. Challenge 8, stop over at a local pub and have a traditional meal, seswa, and quench your thirst with a local beer. We didn't get seswa there, however we had a local beer. The seswa part of the challenge will follow later. A tiny pearl-spotted owlet in our camp perched on a tree branch and then eventually went into its hole. This afternoon we took a time lapse of the sun going down. Little did we know there was going to be pandemonium in the camp. A baboon approached Jerry's vehicle from the back. Anita was standing there. Ronald and myself did not know it was a baboon and thought it was a hyena. I ran to Anita's aid and promptly ran her off her feet. The baboon escaped with a bag full of rubber snakes, yellow arrows, Anita and the baboon. To his horror, the baboon opened the bag and found the snakes. Almost had heart failure. As it is in Africa, drama never lasts long. It's quick, it's nasty, and peace returns to the bush. So did it happen in our camp. Jerry served up a fantastic paella pan full of trinchada. I set up the camera trap again, and lo and behold, who should be there is the hyena. I didn't close the back of the Land Rover, nor pack away my rubbish bag, which is a fatal mistake in the bush. Here he's sniffing around, plucking up the courage to make that final move. He's almost there, sniffing away. And then in a flash, with one swift bite, he's off with the rubbish bag. Breakfast today was crumpets, cheese, preserves, and coffee. What a great way to start the day. Our destination, Dizhana. Camp Dizhana is an eco-friendly camp which is situated on the banks of the Kwai River. The camp is built on the Mababe community concession area that borders the Moremi and Chobe reserves, which makes for excellent game viewing experience. With the likes of elephant, lion, wild dog, hyena and hippo frequenting the camp, there's never a dull moment. To complement this, there's a vast array of bird life which makes it bird lovers' paradise. Each self-catering campsite has its own toilet facilities with flush toilet, hot and cold water, shower and basin. Each campsite has its own donkey for hot water, fireplace and dustbin that is cleaned out daily. Wood is for sale at the reception. The stand will be allocated on arrival. We stopped over at Mababe. We were looking for some refreshments to bolster our dwindling stock. This wasn't to be such an easy task. We managed to get a few beers and a bottle of hardtack at a very exorbitant prices. After a rather corrugated drive, we eventually arrived at Dizhana. This campsite would be our base for 2 days, where we absolutely did nothing, totally relaxed, sitting under the trees, allowing the game and the wildlife to come to us. What a fantastic place. A saddle-billed stork in all his glory. Another favorite, a green woodhoopoe with his iridescent colors in the sun. We got there early, so lunch was a cheese and meat platter, a deserving feast after a long drive. Chores never seemed to end in the bush. Or was that me getting a beer for myself? The sunsets here were just spectacular. Both nights never disappointed. Supper tonight was cream of chicken soup, putu, sauce, and wors. Our first visitor on the camera trap was a hippo in the spotlight that came splashing through the pool, making quite a noise. Later on, you can see the eyes in the background. We had a very shy hyena, but eventually warmed up and did a couple of rounds around the fire. Always present in the evening. Keep your guard up. A great view out of the rooftop tent first thing in the morning. Breakfast was cheeses, meatballs, crackers, and preserves. The ablutions at Dizhana were rustic but clean. There was a separate toilet and a separate shower basin area. The shower was open air to the lake in front of us. Water was heated by means of a donkey. We were graced this morning by 4 tawny eagles that flew around and eventually perched on this tree. I struggled to get this pictures of the mayor's parrot. Eventually succeeded. What a great shot. This grey heron with its beady eyes spent a lot of time motionless in the pond, searching for aquatics. After most of the day, he eventually sunned himself on a log. Strange way that he folds his wings. Another fantastic evening around the fire at Dizhana. This is our last night in the real bush, so we had to make the most of it. Sit quietly and relax and listen to the African sunset. Supper was mini Eisbein, veg and rice with some sauce. Fantastic meal. The crystal clear heavens above Dizhana. What a beautiful sight. Breakfast this morning was savory mince on toast with percolated coffee. Today our planned trip was to the Maun Rest Camp, which is now under the management of the company that founded and runs the nearby Old Bridge Backpackers. We are committed to staying in keeping with the long running of Maun Rest Camp ethos, clean, quiet and comfortable. Maun Rest Camp has free Wi-Fi and a small plunge pool. There are a number of camping and permanent tent options. We will be staying in a double ensuite tent. There will be a restaurant on site by the time we visit next year. On arriving at Maun, we were redirected to the Old Bridge Backpackers. Apparently they were open, and that was initially our first choice where we needed to stay. The rooms were tastefully appointed, sparse but clean, and for a backpackers I was pretty impressed. We had a nice outdoor shower in our room, which made things all the more rustic. The bar area at Maun Backpackers was just the place we needed to dust ourselves off, imbibe on an ice-cold beer, hear the voices of others, play a game of pool, and just relax in a comfortable chair. It was also time to catch up on some junk food. Doesn't that look delicious? After an obligatory nightcap, the moon rose and looked over us as we rested our heads in white linen sheets. The morning greeted us with a pied kingfisher and a black crake, which also proved quite difficult to photograph. Our trip today is to Francistown. We'll be staying at the Cresta Marang Hotel. It is a 3-star hotel in Francistown. The hotel was built in 1981 and renovated in 2000. The Cresta Marang Hotel is situated on premises that is used to be a nursery, thereby earning its nickname of the Garden Hotel. There are plenty of lovely old trees in the gardens around the hotel, housing a considerable bird population. Well-kept lawns stretch to the Tati River. The many trees continue to the pool area where you can relax after a long day of traveling. Camping is available on a first-come first-served basis, which is a budget 75 pula per adult for camping. The camping and caravan site is ideal for people who love the outdoors. The facilities are excellent and clean. The campsites have electrical power points for a separate fee and taps. Remember that the water is not suitable for drinking, and the campsite is grassy and shaded. The thatched ablution blocks are clean and spacious, with toilets and showers, hot and cold water. The camping site is safe with a security guard and a dog keeping a watchful eye at night. The road between Kumaga and Rakops is long and straight. On the one side is desolate, flat land. On the other is the lure of the water of the Batete River. All the cows cross over here daily to drink. In contrast, Cresta Marang is lush and green. Here we met up with my son Calvin and some friends of Anita and Jerry, who by chance Calvin also knew. We had a fantastic braai and enjoyed the evening together. Homeward bound, you are now free to shake the dust out of your boots, pack your memories and prepare for the trip home. Or, if you still have the time and money, seek out another destination at your leisure on your own journey home. We chose to extend the journey by a day, so we decided to all go down to Moremi Gorge near the Martinsdrift border, where we had a fantastic last day together. The remainder of Challenge 8 was to have a traditional meal, ce soir. Jerry found ce soir at the local spa, so it's the only place that we could get it, and we certainly dived in and got a serving of ce soir. It was delicious. Moremi Gorge is a neat community-based camp in the southeast of Botswana. It's a fantastic place that I've been to before, and it has many cultural walks and tours that you can go on. We chose to stay in camp, and we basically cleaned the fridges out of all the leftover foods and threw together some food for lunch, as well as made a pretty decent meal for supper. As the moon watched over us, domestic cats visited us that evening in the camp. It's a stark reminder that we were back on our way to civilization, homeward bound. Thanks for journeying with us.